Graham Lawrence, once a prominent and influential member of the Anglican Church, the 75-year-old now one of the highest ranking to be charged with child sex offences. Lawrence was arrested this morning by Strikeforce Arinya detectives at his Newcastle home and taken to nearby Waratah Police Station. There, he was formally charged with 4 counts of aggravated sexual assault and 1 of aggravated indecent assault. Police claim the alleged offences were committed upon a 15-year-old boy 25 years ago in 1991 in the New South Wales Hunter Valley. The charges stem from last year's Royal Commission into child sexual abuse within the Anglican Diocese of Newcastle, where Lawrence appeared as a witness and gave evidence. The 75-year-old served as the 13th Dean of Newcastle's Christchurch Cathedral for 24 years, from 1984 until 2008, but was defrocked in 2012 following a church disciplinary hearing.
An unusual sight at Stockton Beach. Trucks transferring sand between the Surf Lifesaving Club and northern end of Mitchell Street. The move helping rebuild sand levels and protect the beach against future storm events.
I think it's a band-aid fix and they need to be doing a lot more.
I can't see this fixing the problem, moving sand from one end to the other.
But Newcastle Council asking residents to be patient.
This is really just a temporary solution. There's a much longer-term solution that we're working on now with the New South Wales Government.
An extension of Stockton's rock seawall, the most likely fix.
There's already a rock wall that's there. It probably needs to run right up to the oval at the northern end of the beach. It's an expensive solution and it's one that's going to take a number of years to introduce.
Council's confident will have a recommendation for the state government in the first half of next year.
It's our responsibility to make sure that that recommendation and that investment of funds is one that is going to work and is going to last for many decades to come.
Meanwhile, work to repair the Mitchell Street seawall and pedestrian access to the beach will begin this month after they were damaged during an East Coast low last August. Both are expected to be complete by Christmas. Talia Sav, NBN News.
So we're hearing from our members and from the community that there is massive shortfalls in funding and emerging risk and gaps in service provision.
From natural disasters to scores of emergencies on and off road, for the past 40 years, Newcastle's Police Rescue has been committed to saving lives. Today, generations of the force came together in a more relaxed setting.
Some of the older ones, going back to Mike Delta X-Ray, the aeroplane that crashed up in the Barrington Tops, and there were some really brave men back then.
It was a chance for old friends to reflect on their days together as dozens of retired officers returned to base at the Barrington headquarters.
There's a lot of good times, and even the bad times were good because you're assisting other people.
Ian Borton recalling the time he rescued a commercial diver at Newcastle's BHP Steelworks in 1995.
You wouldn't be too pushed to do that again too soon. It was pretty on the edge sort of stuff.
But it's not just the stories that have evolved over the years.
Certainly our requirement to serve the public's changed, the demands of what we're doing. We've introduced as late as recent years drone technology in our RPAS, so we're using that.
Police Rescue showcasing their latest tools and equipment.
This equipment here is used to x-ray suspicious packages, identifying them as IEDs and the like.
A constantly changing workforce with a mission that remains the same for the team past and present. Talia Sarv, NBN News.
Vargas showed his class during his first day at training. By round 3, he was making a big impact, then disaster struck. There were fears his season and possibly career could be over.
I'm really a positive person. Even when I saw my leg in this condition, maybe you can think about this because you see your leg in this condition. Later, when you start to know how was the diagnostic, how was everything, then you start to be more positive and say, you can come back.
Fortunately, Brisbane's team doctor ensured the recovery process began immediately.
We were lucky enough to have Dr. Jeremy Bartlett on hand, who ended up performing the operation on Ronald that night, who was able to get his ankle back in straight away in the rooms. And then obviously from there it was getting him off to the hospital to get the operation underway as quickly as you could.
Really thankful for a lot of people who work to bring me in this condition faster, and this is something that I really appreciate a lot.
The 30-year-old has received overwhelming support from teammates and the Jets faithful.
For me and for whoever can get this kind of injury, it's always important to have your support of your family and friends and even the fans and everybody. And it's something that I get here from the first moment, and this made my recovery faster, let's say.
Vargas will be in a moon boot for another 3 weeks.
From there, it's, first steps obviously walking normally, getting his range of movement back, starting to get some strength into his foot and ankle. And then from there, it's just gradual progression to getting back on the pitch and then obviously back into training and playing.
It gives me the opportunity to make them all compete for a position, and that's the ideal situation. Also, it gives you good strength off the bench. We did enough in the second half and the end of the first half to get a result. And in season, it's about results, not so much performance. But if we keep performing like that, we're not going to win many games.
Jason Sanger back facing the red ball, just not the six-stitcher today. The Cricket Australia 11's training rained out after a tough outing in Adelaide.
The day-night test was definitely different. Obviously the pink ball and under the lights was quite hard. You don't really get the opportunity to face an international attack, and I'm very grateful for doing that.
The 18-year-old was dismissed for 3 and 5. But he's keeping it in perspective.
My results weren't that great, but I didn't really feel too bad.
His rapid rise earning him plenty of fans along the way.
He's certainly someone of the for the future, but there's still a long way to go, like there is for many young players.
A lot of guys might think being selected in these games, you can take it a bit easy because if you don't do well, then it doesn't really matter. But I think for myself, and I think a lot of the other guys here, we really want to try and do well. Obviously, good performances here can really take us anywhere.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News. She's come to know this patch of turf pretty well. But Pippa Smythe is now destined for greener pastures, the rapidly rising AFLW.
It's really nerve-wracking, but it is exciting.
It was actually sitting at home watching the inaugural season where her dream began, the level of performance and the fan reaction.
That was so motivating and it was so good to watch on TV. Like, they were incredible. So that, watching other girls do it made me believe that, maybe I could do something like that.
That started a journey for the 22-year-old, progressing through the trials before being drafted by the Giants.
Before the trials, they wouldn't have had a clue who I was. From there, I was drafted. So, yeah, it's a pretty surreal feeling.
Her first session is this weekend. She's played in the ruck for Nelson Bay and the Black Diamond, but Smythe says she's happy to play anywhere for her new club.
I'm nervous for training, but I'm so excited to get into it. I really hope this is something that I get to do for, at least 5 more years. Like, I hope I'm good enough to do that.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News. The witness and gave evidence. The 75-year-old served as the 13th Dean of Newcastle's Christchurch Cathedral for 24 years from 1984 until 2008, but was defrocked in 2012 following a church disciplinary hearing.
And reporter Tyson Cottrell joins us live now. Tyson, when will Graham Lawrence face court?
Tash, he'll front Newcastle local court on all 5 charges early next month. In the meantime, the 75-year-old does remain on conditional bail. Now, this afternoon, the Anglican Diocese of Newcastle issued a statement on behalf of Bishop Peter Stewart. In it, it reads that each allegation of sexual abuse is a matter of deep shame and regret to the people of the diocese. Tash?
Thank you, Tyson Cottrell, reporting there. The Labor Party has pulled off one of the biggest political shocks in a long time.
With bated breath, hand in hand, they waited for a potentially life-changing announcement. An emotional end to what was, for some, a draining and degrading process.
It feels fantastic just to have that validation, to know that there is support out there, the hate that we saw come out from this, to know that there is more love than hate.
I wasn't sure just before they announced it. Yeah, we didn't really know. There's been so much from both sides, you weren't really sure, so it was a relief, that's for sure.
For those already married, it represents a chance to legalise their union.
I didn't know what to expect. I really didn't know what to expect. So hearing those results and it was just amazing. It's nice to have the Australian population supporting us. It's unfortunate we had to go that way, but yeah, we're being accepted in our society now, which is really, really great.
While the majority of Australia voted yes, so too did Novocastrians, with close to 75% of us voting yes in favour of same-sex marriage.
The Newcastle community, I've always known, has a really deeply embedded sense of fairness, and today that just really shone through.
And the region as a whole cast a clear yes vote too, with the result in the Hunter, Patterson and Shortland electorates also above the national average. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Na White appeared before Newcastle Local Court via video link from Silverwater Women's Jail. The 44-year-old has been there since her arrest just over 3 weeks ago, despite being granted bail. White has been unable to raise enough money to secure her release, and today her barrister William Hussey applied to have the $100,000 surety reduced. He argued that given the Crime Commission has seized all of his client's properties, the most she's able to offer is $50,000. White was arrested and charged on the 26th of October, 2 days after officers raided a Steele Street premises where they allegedly uncovered 300 cannabis plants. She was originally charged with dealing with the proceeds of crime, but is now facing 4 additional charges. Opposing the application, the police prosecutor argued the amount shouldn't be reduced given the new charges and a flight risk. Magistrate Stone noted that the issue of flight is considerably reduced by the fact someone else is going to raise $50,000 and there's an ankle bracelet. It means White's bail conditions now consist of a $50,000 deposit, $200,000 using mortgages, a $50,000 surety and being fitted with a $28,000 GPS tracking bracelet. She'll remain in custody until all the funds have been cleared. Her 7 co-accused are due in court tomorrow.
It's the supercar's new high-speed home, and authorities are putting the brakes on any would-be races in the lead-up to the real show. Over the next 9 days, Beat Police and the Highway Patrol will team up to monitor the track.
They will be targeting people that want to engage in hoodlum behaviour with motor vehicles.
And that's both night and day.
Plenty of random breath testing, plenty of vehicle inspections, plenty of speed checks.
So far, motorists are largely being praised for responsible behaviour on the track, with only a small number of minor infringements issued. Police say the risk is simply not worth it.
We don't even entertain the thought because it's not worth the consequence. Severe cases, they could lose their vehicle, they'd be impounded and put before the courts.
Meanwhile, spectators and those planning on entering the CBD during the event are being urged to organise their transport arrangements.
I would ask people to take advantage of the park and ride and public transport, the ferries, to leave their vehicles at remote locations.
Talia Sav, NBN News.
We think it's very important that every child in the Hunter that's facing some form of disadvantage gets a great Christmas.
It started with a team member's idea back in Adelaide 30 years ago, and it's grown and grown to delivering almost 8 million gifts throughout the country every year.
An introduction to Newcastle from two of the city's favourite sons, but Nathan Ross and Jamie Buhrer were soon given a tour of their own by supercar drivers Scott McLaughlin, Jason Bright and hometown hope Aaron Russell before recruiting them as the Knights' newest fans. The drivers didn't need too much prompting on their next stop. Let loose on Stockton's famous sand dunes.
Oh mate, it's a blast. Quite a bit different to what we'll be running around in Newcastle street circuit next week.
That's cool. I feel like I'm in the Sahara Desert. I've never seen anything like this before.
Russell was keen to lead the pack.
Just wanted to show him who's boss here in town and make sure they know that first up.
That was fine by McLaughlin, who's a close second in the supercar standings and possibly just over a week out from his maiden title.
You've got to take it easy today. Yeah, I'm worried. I don't want to hurt myself. I don't think anyone wants to hurt themselves about a week out. You actually don't realise how high you are and then you come back down. So, yeah, I was doing like 70 Ks coming down the hills. It was very fast.
The supercar drivers hit the real track for the first time on Friday week. Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
The Jets haven't beaten the Sky Blues in their last 13 A-League games, with Newcastle unable to score in the past 6. So the ladder leaders are keen to test themselves against the defending champions.
You've got to be mindful of their attacking abilities, and we're going to be mindful of that, but at the same token, we're not going to let them play all over us either.
Ben Kantarovski was the only Jets player coming off contract that Ernie Merrick chose to keep. He's now relishing regular game time, scoring his second goal this season in Newcastle's 2-1 win over Adelaide.
Look, when a coach really shows that much faith in you, you want to repay him, and I think that's what I've been trying to do each week, week in, week out, and if we keep winning, hopefully he'll be still happy.
The Jets women are coming off their first loss, a 5-2 hammering by Melbourne City.
We knew it was going to be a tough game, but I think we, if we're honest with ourselves, we didn't give a good account of ourselves, and we're definitely better than what we showed.
Adding injury to insult, both Tori Huster and Natasha Pryor are in doubt for Sunday's clash with Canberra at number 2 Sports Ground. Tara Andrews could make her first start this season.
We've got people like Tara that can come in and do a job. Claire Wheeler can come into the midfield and do a job. So there's no need to panic, but we need to make sure the people that go on the park are going to be 100%.
She starred for the Jillaroos at centre. Now Caitlin Moran will get a chance at halfback after an incredible season that saw the 20-year-old named New South Wales Player of the Year. It's a role she knows well. She's played there for North Newcastle. Her clubmates Beck Young and Isabel Kelly will also run out in Sydney tomorrow. Young at prop, while Kelly is at centre. Sam Stone has re-signed with the Knights until the end of season 2020. He was contracted until the end of next year, but the club moved quickly to lock him down long-term amid interest from NRL rivals.
I love the Knights and I love Newcastle, and it's my home, and I'd love to stay here if that's possible, and now I've got 3 years sorted and hopefully can extend a bit further than that.
With Aidan Guerra playing the same position, Stone faces a battle for game time, but it's one he welcomes.
I'd love to take his place, I know, as bad as it sounds, and I think the competition for spots at the moment is only going to make everyone better. But also I want to, pick his brain and learn as much as I can off him.
A haul like nothing Lake Macquarie has ever seen. Package after package of cocaine, 700 kilograms of it, with an estimated street value of $245 million, all found on board this catamaran at Toronto.
Massive, sleepy Toronto, big drug bust, unbelievable.
Investigators boarded the vessel late yesterday after monitoring its journey from Tahiti via Coffs Harbour. The massive seizure, the result of a 3-month joint investigation by Strikeforce Gava, consisting of the Organised Crime Squad, Federal Police, the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission and Border Force officers.
It doesn't matter whether it's 1 gram or 100 kilograms or 700 kilograms. Our officers are absolutely determined to work with all of our partners, both onshore and offshore, to detect and disrupt these kind of importations from occurring.
Police also raided several properties across Newcastle, including this one at Islington. 3 men were arrested: 68-year-old Dennis Malcolm Bath of Broadmeadow, 47-year-old Craig William Lemke from Mayfield East, and Kent Anthony Jackson, 63, from Islington. All faced Newcastle local court today, charged with importing a commercial quantity of border-controlled drugs, a charge carrying a maximum sentence of life in prison. This morning, forensic teams worked on board the yacht before undertaking the delicate task of unloading the vessel. The yacht itself is worth close to $1 million, and the process of removing the drug has been quite a lengthy one due to the sheer volume on board. All 3 men were refused bail and are due to face court via video link in January. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
It's been the perfect storm. Supercars, city works and light rail construction all at once, and the effects are being felt by the business community.
It's quite distressing to hear some of the stories of some of the retailers, to hear where they, how they were trading and now in the place they are at the moment.
Sandwiched between the light rail work on Hunter Street and Newcastle institution Frontline Hobbies.
Over the last few months, there's not been a problem with our trade, but probably in the last week or so, we have noticed a slight drop-off in passing trade.
It's a similar story at the other end of the mall. Retailers say there's a misconception the CBD is off limits.
People just think that, I'm not going to be able to get a park, or possibly maybe the stores won't even be open, but I can definitely say we are open 7 days a week.
Measures have been taken to alleviate congestion, including park and ride services and extra car spaces.
We need Newcastle to come in and support us through this difficult time, so that in the future, when the light rail's done, everything's done, it's going to be massive. But we do need people to support us now, in the now.
We're all here, we're all open for business. This is what we do.
Meredith Gibbs, NBN News.
As an elite sportsperson, Cheryl Salisbury has experienced many big moments in life. She counts yesterday's announcement among them.
It felt a bit like those moments when waiting for the announcement of the Olympics in 2000, and it was such a big event that it seemed everyone stopped and was waiting for it, and it was huge and it felt very inclusive.
She and partner Shell have been together for 4 years, and for them the vote was about love and equality.
I've done so many great things in football, World Cups and Olympics, and being asked to talk at different events and all these things, but then at the same time I don't get those same recognitions that most other couples in Australia get to do.
That changed yesterday with the survey result. The pair has contemplated marriage in the past, but Cheryl says it's always been important to her for it to be legal in Australia.
It's not a major rush to go out and do to go and get married as soon as it happens, but, it's definitely something now that we can, when we're ready.
Whenever it happens, a wedding would be a hometown affair, where Cheryl says she feels supported by family and friends, and a city which returned a 75% yes vote.
It just shows that people are inclusive now and, you belong.
Newcastle's batsmen are in fine touch, but they're not getting too comfortable in the nets at number 1, with the poor state of the outfield meaning Sunday's games have been moved to Waratah Oval.
It's a shame. It's a shame. I love playing cricket number 1. From what I heard, the outfield's just not quite up to it, but Waratah's fantastic. It's probably one of my favourite grounds to play at.
It makes for even more T20 action. The boundary there is much shorter.
It changes a little bit as the captain. It'll change some tactics, probably more sixes, which is probably not a bad thing as a batter.
Not a bad thing for the Newcastle Steel either, given the form its batsmen showed in the country titles, and it's the home ground of former Sheffield Shield paceman Bert Cockley.
He was fantastic against his old club, Randwick. He bowled quite sharp for the 4 overs. I think the 4 overs is just about pulls him up as well, so I think he likes the shorter format.
But the Sydney clubs will potentially bring their own weapons. Peter Neville could play for Reece if he isn't selected for the opening Ashes test, while his teammate, former test batsman Nick Maddinson, is likely to head here. But the Steel says it's focusing on its own game and trying to advance beyond the quarterfinals, which it made last season.
We've started really well this year and hopefully we can go a little bit further.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
So I went on Sale of the Century, and the rest is history and a show.
Committing to the rear of the jersey for season 2018, the ink was hardly dry before Red Energy was guaranteed return on investment.
Their support for the region, is unwavering, and we're going to return that support by making sure the team next year plays at its absolute potential.
Being part of the Knights is really crucial to us. In my humble belief, if you want to be successful in business in Newcastle and the Hunter, you've got to join the Knights. The Knights are our heart and soul.
But the partnership runs deeper than emotion. As the club continues its transition to a new era, today's announcement signals an endorsement that the business community likes what it sees.
We test the brand just not in Newcastle, not in the Hunter, but outside as well. West bring the discipline, the management and the skills, and with Nathan and the players, I suspect we'll be incredibly successful on the field.
For Knights coach Nathan Brown, it's more than just another sponsorship announcement. As the front office gets its house in order, the flow and effect of football speaks volumes.
The stability of the club as it is, as it has been for the past number of weeks since West taken over, there's no doubt, us in the marketplace now, we have a lot more credibility.
And for members, that means 2018 could yet be the year they dare to dream. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Whether it's traffic congestion or finding parking or making a city more secure, a lot of those problems can be solved without huge investments in infrastructure, but much simpler investments in technology.
"7 days and counting." This first-hand look at what spectators can expect to see will become a reality next Friday. Today, organisers and emergency services announced their plan of attack.
A key aim for us is to make sure that as the event happens, safety is a number one priority.
Police, Fire and Rescue and the New South Wales Ambulance Service say they'll be well equipped to respond swiftly in the event of an emergency inside the race precinct.
We're quite satisfied that the community will be well served. We will have additional ambulance resources that are working within the event and also within the precinct.
While East End residents will have access to a dedicated medical centre, complete with doctors, pharmacists and paramedics on the corner of Telford and Stevenson Place.
We recognise the large number of residents are in that area and there is restricted access, and we thought this is the best way. Rather than trying to figure out how to get people out into medical services, it was better for us to figure out a way to bring those services to them.
Extra police are being brought in from Sydney to help with traffic issues, and maintaining the events family-friendly vibe.
We will be targeting any antisocial behaviour and those who overindulge in alcohol, so be warned.
A safety message has also been extended to those planning on watching the race from the water. RMS will be setting up designated boat mooring areas for the duration of the event. They'll be located between Horseshoe Beach and Queen's Wharf and must be booked in advance. Renee Feder, NBN News.
From a derelict past to the pioneer of Newcastle's changing landscape, Merriweather Surf House has seen it all. Now it's headed for another chapter in its colourful history as the search begins for new owners.
I expect there'll be a lot of inquiry and it'll be a broad range of potential buyer profile.
At the other end of town, the vetting process has begun for the old Newcastle Post Office, attracting wide-ranging interest.
Hospitality, adaptive reuse for residential, conference centre.
A decision is expected by Christmas. At Lake Macquarie, the path has been cleared for the proposed merger between Belmont Golf Club and the recently sold bowling club. The decision to merge will be decided by members of both clubs in December. In the meantime, the focus shifts to the future of the site.
Essentially, I'd like to see more affordable housing in the area. We've got the demand for affordable housing, we've got the infrastructure for it, certainly people need it, and that site can definitely lend itself to some high-density residential development.
Meanwhile, the real estate rumour mill is set to return to overdrive with the reported relisting of Killara. The palatial estate sold last month for $4.2 million, almost half its original asking price. But in a new turn of events, it's understood the contract has since been rescinded. The Dudley property will be marketed with another agent as the search continues for a buyer with the need for its expansive lifestyle and 10-car garage. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
If the people turn up, it will be very much moral support as well as financial support to us.
Two years ago, he was fighting for life after a horror crash in Melbourne. 1 year ago, he suffered a punctured lung and shattered his elbow in a fall in Poland. But today, Jason Doyle is a world champion, a dream he's fought tirelessly to achieve for so long.
Yeah, it's nice to hear the world champion said under my name. It hasn't really sunk in at the moment.
That's not to say he got through unscathed. His foot has now been broken for 4 months. He was forced to ride through the pain.
If I was second with a broken foot, I'd be pretty annoyed with myself.
He's been away from his new wife, all while carrying the weight of expectation that he would claim his maiden crown.
I've said many times in the media that it's been the worst 3 months of my life, trying to get the pressure away and just ride my motorbike, and many people say it can happen, and you're going to be world champion. This was making it worse. The pressure just kept building.
But Doyle wouldn't be denied winning his first Speedway world title in dominant style in Melbourne.
I'm really glad now, looking back, that I didn't seal it in Poland. To come back to Etihad and win the world title in front of the Australian fans was a really great moment in my career. I never thought it was possible.
After racing at more than 100 events this year and flying more than 100 times, it's rest time. He flies back to England next week. Top of the to-do list, surgery to finally fix his foot and some time away from the track.
It's been nice to be back in Australia, but I just want to not see a motorbike for a couple of weeks.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News. Their attacks made headlines, but Newcastle's defence has only conceded 6 goals. And Jack Duncan has been a big part of that.
As a team, I think we're working really well, and I'm just loving being a part of it.
Given the nod by Ernie Merrick for round one, the 24-year-old has taken the chance with both hands, holding out two experienced A-League glovemen to do so, Ivan Nasevsky and Glenn Moss.
In pre-season, we just pushed each other as hard as we could. We knew that only one person was going to play, and that's just how it is. But I think if you go at it with the right attitude, which we both have, and approach it as we support each other no matter who's playing, and that just makes a healthy environment. It's a good working environment, and it's a pleasure to come in and train together.
He'll face his biggest test tomorrow, a top-of-the-table clash against the dynamic Sydney FC. Newcastle hasn't beaten them in their past 13 contests. The defending champions are a club Duncan knows well. He grew up in the city's south, supporting them.
I always thought, being the local team, that maybe that was the club I was hoping to play for. But I was lucky enough to come up to the Jets as a 17-year-old, and obviously now they're the enemy. I think if we put in a performance that we know we're capable of, then we'll come away with some points.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News. Lawrence Aitchison believes it's the golf tee's greatest innovation in 130 years, the Goose Tee. But this little bit of gear is no laughing matter.
It's a very simple idea to what seems to be a very complicated problem.
It's an eye-catching design, nothing like what golf has seen before, but the man behind it believes that's where the genius is, a modern take on the sporting staple.
It actually came to me in a vision. This thing threw me on the bed and said, "Ah!" And I just jumped up and drew it.
It works like this. The tee is dropped onto the ground, positioned. The ball is then dropped too. It can be pushed up the ramp by the club face and into the slot. Then it's time to swing and pick up the tee by the end of the club, all without bending over. And that's where Lawrence believes the Goose Tee can take flight. It appeals to the more seasoned golfers, the bulk of the playing public, and extend their golfing days by saving their back. But there's one thing the tee can't do, and that saved my playing style.
We're just extremely proud to be able to put golfers back on the golf course.
The tee is available through a crowdfunding campaign. Head to our website for details. Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
Nestled amongst the Shortland Waters golf course, AVO Newcastle is the region's newest planned retirement village. Stage 1 of the $220 million project was unveiled today, 50 units and a community centre.
We aim to have a community of over 300 independent living units over time. We'll be incorporating a high care facility into that, 127 beds in later stages.
According to the Housing Industry Association, developments like this have sharply increased in the Hunter in recent years. While the inclusion and companionship of retirement communities can be reason for change, so too are the smaller and newer homes.
Most commonly they're starting to find that the home is not suitable for them as they age, whether immediately at the moment or potentially into the future. Or more importantly, less maintenance, less lawns, less painting, less gutters to be cleared.
And in some cases, experts say downsizing can also benefit the hip pocket.
In the Hunter, we still have quite a lot of affordable land, so it makes these projects quite affordable. You can sell an existing home where the value has come up over the last 20 years and actually put a little bit of money into your superannuation by buying hopefully a house which is a little bit smaller and a little bit cheaper.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
A star-studded lineup on hand to offer advice or even a helping hand. Today's Come and Try Day designed to encourage people with a disability to get involved in athletics.
It's not as easily for people with disabilities to get involved in sport, especially athletics, because it involves equipment rather than just just yourself. So and these race chairs are around $3,000 each.
A Newcastle Permanent Charitable Foundation grant helped purchase 4 specialised racing wheelchairs, allowing the track and road athletics program to roll out to Newcastle today.
My advice to anyone was just to come out and have a go. It doesn't really matter what age or what your disability is, come out and have a try.
Lauren Parker is among those set to benefit. A training accident in April left the professional triathlete paralysed from the waist down. 6 months on, the determined athlete has set new goals in parasport.
I've been borrowing a chair up until now, which will get taken back to Sydney now that the new chairs are in. It means that I can train consistently on a weekly basis.
It's the first time the program will operate outside of Sydney.
If kids want to at least try it, they can, and they can just do it for fun and keep fit, or they can go on to aspire to be the next Kurt Fearnley.
Today, the 3-time Paralympic gold medalist showed the next generation the ropes, with son Harry running by his side.
Potentially me 15, 20 years ago and getting that first taste of sport, and we're a pretty good community to be a part of.
Meredith Gibbs, NBN News.
Last weekend's drubbing is all but a memory now, although it's one the Jets aren't going to forget.
It's difficult to swallow, a 5-2 defeat against a great Melbourne City side. But in saying that, football's a funny game, and the good thing is we've got a chance this weekend to redeem ourselves.
They'll have to do that without American midfielder Tori Huster, rested with her ankle complaint, and defender Tash Pryor with concussion, a blow given Canberra's dynamic attack.
Canberra's going to present its problems with the pacey front three that they've got there, but in saying that, I think if we just focus on ourselves, I don't see why we can't come out with something this weekend.
It's Newcastle's only game at their new home base, number 2 Sports Ground. Kick-off is at 4:30.
We've been training on it all year, so I definitely think it should play in our favour, but in saying that, Canberra's a great team.
Resuming play on 24, it was already Jason Sanger's best knock against a full international side, but he was far from finished, the 18-year-old Cardiff product, scoring quickly, a tactic that almost saw him gone on 43. But he pushed on for an impressive half-century, then set his sights on the big one. Sanger showing exactly why he's so highly rated, dispatching the Ashes attack with ease. That was until the nervous 90s. He had a drinks break to mull it over, and then a few fiery deliveries. But Jason Sanger remained calm. the 9th youngest Aussie to achieve the feat.
It took a while to get there in the 90s, but look, I mean, all the hard work's paying off, and I'm glad that I got to make this 100 with some great guys next to me.
His batting partner Matt Short soon had his own ton, the pair posting a record partnership of 263. Sanger with 133 before he was caught, the end of an innings he'll never forget.